Bootstrapping Chinese. Old dogs, new tricks. My name is Will Anderson, and at 47, I should not consider learning anything new, right? Society tells us that old dogs have an aversion to new tricks. I just traveled to China for the first time, and I'm at the very beginning of learning Chinese. My first instinct was to swing the monkey bars of the certification ladder, taking each step of the HSK sequence from the beginning until travel and personal contacts replaced my formal tuition. But something was wrong. Each monkey bar was annotated in English. Babies need no translations. 8 years ago, I began learning Russian with online tutors, setting for myself two ground rules. Video calls were considered a distraction, and thus my lessons were always conducted using voice exchange only and with a textbook. And we spoke from day one only in the target language. We would discuss the target language using only the target language. Babies learn their mother language without explanations in a second language. And so why shall adults need explanations in their mother language? Adults have established memorization strategies, life experience to which they may attach newly learned syntax, and adults may choose their learning method. The adage that children learn languages faster and easier than adults do is therefore patently false. If I could learn Russian without English, why would I need English to learn Chinese? The answer, I would not, and neither shall anyone else. Learning Russian throughout COVID, I was frequently requested to teach my native language to children. The resulting triangular tandem situations involved learning Russian from Russophone parents and teaching English to their children. I therefore worked frequently with non-expert parents and developed my own curricula for myself. If babies can and must learn their first language without translation, then so can adults, more quickly and regardless of their native language. The method is universal. The HSK trap. If we open the official HSK textbooks, we find translations. English, French, Russian, Arabic, whatever the local edition happens to be. The problem is not which language you translate from. The problem is that you're translating at all. Some might say, but HSK manuals exist in many languages. To which I reply, that is not a solution. It is a patch. It still requires learners to know some intermediary language and forces publishers to guess which languages to support, inevitably leaving many behind. What if, instead, there are one set of manuals for all users, no translations, just images, pinyin, characters, and tone marks? A Mongolian herder and a Brazilian engineer could use the exact same book. That's not just efficient, that is democratization. Imagine sitting in Turkmenistan, desiring to learn Chinese, but realizing that you must first learn another language, English, Russian, or whatever, in order to learn Chinese. The notion is absurd. Chinese infants learn Chinese without any intermediary language at all. Why should adults be any different? Nouns are images, verbs are movies. I therefore developed a dictionary which is sorted thematically and visually, which develops knowledge from familiar, universal notions such as arithmetic and geography, and which assiduously avoids English. It avoids any intermediary language, not just English, because the method must work for everyone, everywhere. Knowledge of Chinese implies mastering four languages at once. The notions, Latinized pronunciation in the form of pinyin, tonalities, and finally the simplified Chinese characters representing the notion. Adding direct translations in an intermediate language introduces unnecessary interference. A static dictionary sorted by images implies that the vast majority of notions are nouns. If verbs are movies, then nouns are images. We must first charge our brains with the syntax of many nouns, and later, working with a coach, we weave together the quilt of a spoken language with verbs and grammar. From ABC to 2,319 entries. Maybe Chinese infants learn Chinese without knowledge of English, but Chinese schoolchildren do learn Latin letters early in order to codify pronunciation in the form of pinyin. Our voyage from the familiar into the unfamiliar begins therefore with a list of the Chinese pronunciation for each Latin letter. We then list rudimentary arithmetic operators and punctuation. Arithmetic operators are primitive verbs which enable discussions about the target language in the target language. Once I begin working with a coach, after compilation and on day one, I will be capable of formulating the following type of question. 苹果等有水果吗? Is an apple equal to fruit? My coach answers, 是的,苹果等有水果. Yes, apple equals fruit. We are already having a conversation in Chinese without a single word of English. We list in the dictionary punctuation, which enables us to discuss sentence types. We then list cardinal and ordinal numbers. Cardinal numbers enable us to spend time with the coach solving simple arithmetic exercises. The arithmetic will be simple, and the cognitive task will be to recall the syntax, to read, and answer. Ordinal numbers enable us to request page numbers and column numbers. For example, let us begin on page 4. And finally, we invade the Unicode database, which, with its established translations in most languages, and list all of the current emojis along with their defined names in Chinese. For each entry, we have the 4 component languages of Chinese: a notion containing an image, a pinyin representation, the tonality as diacritical marks on the pinyin, and the simplified Chinese characters. We arrive at 2,319 entries, including the names of all United Nations member states, all without a single word of translation, usable by anyone, anywhere, regardless of their native language. From ladder to landscape, filtering without hierarchy. The HSK ladder has its uses. It gives us milestones. But I do not want to climb it rung by rung. Instead, I want to use HSK classifications as a filter. Show me only HSK1 words, and I will still see the entire thematic universe, only at reduced stature. We can dose to ourselves the desired complexity. The traditional HSK approach forces you to climb. Level 1, then level 2, then level 3. Each step supposedly harder than the last. But vocabulary does not work that way. A word like 苹果, apple, is HSK1, but the emoji list contains red and green apples, 红苹果, and 新苹果. Comparing the two entries teaches us instantly the adjectives for the colors red and green. A word like 麒麟, the mythical unicorn, might not appear on any HSK list at all. All are equally imageable. All belong to the same thematic universe. Apples are common and unicorns are rare, but none of the words are harder in any meaningful sense. By treating HSK levels as tags rather than rungs, we preserve the thematic integrity of the dictionary. Food stays together, animals stay together, numbers stay together. The learner can choose to see only HSK1 words and still encounter apples, oranges, and rice side by side, exactly where they belong in the mind. This is why I call it a landscape, not a ladder. A ladder forces you upward, one step at a time. A landscape invites you to explore. You choose which path to take, which region to visit, how deep to go. The HSK tags are simply signposts. This area is beginner friendly. This area is more advanced. But the landscape itself is open. When I applied this filter to my dictionary, I discovered that HSK1 yields exactly 38 entries. I added manually the entries for red and green apples, bringing the total to 40. 40 words that any serious student can master before their first lesson with a coach. Not because they're easy, but because they are common. They are signposts that appear most frequently on the path. In my dictionary, filtering for HSK1 shows me apples and numbers and family members, all together, all imageable, all ready to be practiced. The latter is gone. The landscape remains. Now, with a filtered landscape in hand, we face the next challenge: how to pronounce these words so that a computer, and eventually a human, can understand us. That brings us to our next chapter: trick the computer and convince the human. Trick the computer and convince the human. Now we have a useful static resource for mapping meaning into syntax. We are almost ready to speak regularly with a coach. How do we know that our pronunciation of pinyin corresponds to the language used daily in the Middle Kingdom? When I was starting to learn Russian and before I had found my first coaches, I would read Russian words, then phrases, then paragraphs into devices equipped with voice recognition software and set the devices to recognize Russian. My reasoning was, if my dumb computer cannot understand my grunts in Russian, how possibly could I expect my coach to understand me? I started small, with single words, and progressed up to complete phrases which I anticipated needing during online lessons. Please repeat. Speak more slowly, please. Please reformulate. These are my dearest friendly phrases. The dictionary can thus be used for building pinyin familiarity before speaking with a human coach. Speak phrases into your favorite voice recognition software and observe the quality of recognition. Does your uttered pinguo generate a displayed corresponding set of characters? From a static tool to a dedication test. A language only lives in dialogue. We may construct tools and speak with devices for years, but only speaking with a coach will animate the nouns and the verbs and grow our Chinese language embryo. Bootstrapping has its limits, but it remains essential, essential for pupils and essential for the quality of coaching itself. I sometimes use the term non-expert teachers, not to diminish native speakers, but to distinguish them from trained pedagogues. A native speaker with a general education may not know how to teach, but they know what the language sounds like. And for a learner who has already bootstrapped the basics, that native ear is precisely what they need. Nevertheless, we shall not squander the precious resource of a human interlocutor. We shall fortify ourselves as pupils as far as possible before engaging our sparring partners. The coach shall protect their time by obliging new students to memorize those 40 HSK1 words and pass a short quiz on them before regular tutelage begins. This is not cruelty. This is respect for both parties. Chinese language explained using Chinese language, period. Indeed, Chinese in Chinese. This dictionary is not a translation aid. It is a replacement for translation. Every entry from Pingguo to Qilin is explained using the four languages of Chinese: the image, the pinyin, the tone, and the character. No English, no French, no Russian, just Chinese. If a Chinese infant can learn Chinese without knowing any other language, then so can you. The only difference is that you have a choice and you can build such a dictionary. This is not a shortcut. It is a return to the natural order of language acquisition: meaning to sound to symbol. No detours. We democratize the approach. We eliminate interference. The pupil will also realize that memorization is more direct when they must solve puzzles. Spoon-fed knowledge is quickly discarded, without having educated the diner. I just embarked on this odyssey, though I have already built the vessel. The journey ahead is long, but the ship is sound. I can only imagine the development of complexity necessary for Chinese-only tuition of Chinese up to full fluency. However, I know it is possible and is necessary. The beginning will be mostly images, similar to an IKEA instruction manual, which, despite containing almost no words, enables the uneducated builder to erect complex structures at home. Gradually, tonality annotated pinyin, and finally simplified Chinese writing, jianqi will replace all images. We snowball the unknown into the known. No more uninspiring monkey bar exercises, just Chinese in Chinese. Period. The vessel is built. Now who will sail it? My interest in monolingual language curricula is both selfish and altruistic. I know that I memorize results of puzzles more easily than memorizing overloaded translations of a second language, and therefore I assume my own progress will be much faster with such curricula. Altruistic, because speakers of minority languages should not be obliged to know a second language in order to acquire a third. An ideal curriculum would explain the target language successfully to complete aliens. Of course, a modicum of common familiarity, arithmetic, geography, is essential. The less the better, however. The pupil should ideally grow an independent Chinese brain and soul by following the curriculum and not constantly vacillate between an explanation language and a target language. Translations, after all, are comfortable distractions. I have built a vessel. It is not complete, as no vessel ever is, but it is sound and it is ready for the water. I'm not interested in giving it away to those who will not use it, nor am I interested in selling it to those who do not understand the purpose. I'm interested in guiding its further development with coaches who value preparation, with publishers who question the English assumption, and with learners who are willing to bootstrap before they seek a coach. If that sounds like you, let us talk. Not as seller and buyer, but as partners in building a better way to learn Chinese. This dictionary is my proof. The method is my argument. And the future, if we choose it, is Chinese learned in Chinese from the very first word.